Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our webinar hosted by the Inclusive Labour Market Alliance. We'll just give time for participants to connect. My name is Laura Jones and I'll be moderating today. See more people logging in, so we'll wait until that has slowed and then we'll kick off. You can already see some tips on participation in the activity on the slide. We will record and that will be accessible to participants afterwards. So I think the logging ins have stabilized for the moment. So let's kick off because we have a tight program and we want to make sure that we can hear everyone's presentations and also hear from the audience as well. So again, welcome to everybody. My name is Laura Jones and I'm the Secretary General at the European Platform for Rehabilitation, which is a network of service providers supporting people with a disability. And our organization is part of the Inclusive Labour Market Alliance. And the Inclusive Labour Market Alliance is a group of European organizations aiming to promote the employment of people with disability. And we came together already 2 years ago and we have different activities that we're promoting. And today our aim is to introduce good practices from companies in inclusive employment, inclusive recruitment, with the aim of reaching other companies, other employers, to encourage them to learn from these initiatives and to promote the employment of people with a disability. So today we will hear from 5 good practices and we will also have an opening statement as well. And we will keep people muted. We have interpretation available. You can activate it by clicking the interpretation button at the bottom. And we also have closed captioning, so you can read the text which is being typed live. And as mentioned, we are recording the seminar and that will be made available to participants afterwards as well. And so with the presenters, I will be quite strict with the timing. I'll give a warning if necessary. And we will then take a few questions after each presentation. And at the end, we will have a short time of reflection on lessons learned and some information about other upcoming events that might be interesting for you as well. This event is taking place in the context of the Disability Employment Week, and there are many other events happening at the same time. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Jaleh Brandea, who will give us an opening statement from Vivendi. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and thank you very much, Laura. I'm really very honored as part of Vivendi, which is a European media group, to open this special webinar on the employer perspective on inclusive recruitment. So welcome to all, bienvenue, bienvenidos, bienvenuti, willkommen, welcome. The last ones were supposed to be German and Swedish. I hope those who would understood. I shall now switch to French, but as Laura said, you're going to have the live translation. Donc bonjour à toutes et tous. Je voulais absolument ouvrir cette introduction en anglais pour être la plus inclusive possible avec les bienvenus dans toutes les langues que je connaissais européennes. Je suis très très honorée d'ouvrir cette conférence qui s'appelle An Employer Perspective on Inclusive Recruitment, le point de vue des employeurs sur le recrutement inclusif. Je suis Jaleh Brandea, directrice projet Inclusion et égalité des chances du groupe Vivendi. Vivendi est une société européenne présente dans 80 pays dans le monde, un groupe de médias avec comme entité le groupe Canal+, le groupe Havas, Editis, qui est le 2e éditeur français, Prisma Media, Gameloft, Vivendi Village, avec dans son giron les spectacles vivants, dont pour nous la fameuse salle mythique, l'Olympia, et aussi Dailymotion. Au sein de Vivendi, beaucoup de femmes et d'hommes travaillent tous les jours pour que notre groupe soit le plus inclusif possible. Et nos métiers font que ces questions de diversité, d'équité et d'inclusion, nous devons les traiter comme tout le monde, non seulement en interne, mais aussi dans nos contenus, que ce soit à la télé, dans les spectacles, dans les livres, les magazines, les jeux, etc. Puisque nous faisons des contenus que d'autres regardent, écoutent, lisent, eh bien, nous savons que nous pouvons avoir une influence. Et cette influence nous procure forcément une très grande responsabilité. D'ailleurs, je viens tout juste de rentrer de Londres où nous a été remis dans le cadre des European Diversity Awards le prix du média de l'année, Media Diversity Champion of the Year. Et comme je l'ai dit dans mon discours de remerciement à Londres, encore plus qu'un award, pour moi, ce prix est un immense encouragement à continuer d'agir pour la diversité et pour ce qui nous concerne aujourd'hui davantage, pour le handicap, bien sûr. C'est la 4e année que Vivendi est partenaire de la Semaine européenne pour l'emploi des personnes handicapées et ce partenariat grandit chaque année. Cette semaine qu'on appelle en France la SEPH est une semaine vraiment très importante pour le handicap, en France et en Europe, car toutes les énergies sont orientées vers le handicap et l'emploi pendant cette semaine. Vivendi y croit beaucoup et la conférence d'aujourd'hui prend pleinement en compte cette dimension européenne si importante. Notre groupe s'engage à différents niveaux pour le handicap. Par exemple, c'est BETC, l'une des agences les plus prestigieuses du groupe Havas, qui a accepté de réaliser, d'élaborer en pro bono la campagne de communication de la Semaine européenne de l'emploi des personnes handicapées, donc en pro bono, et ils ont vraiment très vite répondu favorablement parce qu'ils ont à cœur de faire progresser la question du handicap dans la société. Et les campagnes de com sont primordiales parce que c'est les mentalités de toute la société qu'il faut changer et faire progresser. Je pourrais aussi vous citer Décodis, des éditions Retz chez Editis, qui a sorti il y a quelques mois une méthode précurseur d'apprentissage de la lecture pour des enfants atteints de retard mental et qui donc en général à l'âge adulte ne savent pas lire, ce qui est un handicap majeur quand il s'agit pour eux par exemple de tenter de trouver un travail. Et donc un travail formidable a été effectué pour apprendre à ces enfants à lire, alors certes en plus longtemps qu'un enfant ordinaire qui lirait en une année, ces enfants-là vont prendre 3-4 ans, mais ils apprennent à lire, à déchiffrer, à décoder, d'où le nom Décodis. Et ça veut dire que plus tard, à l'âge adulte, pour s'insérer dans la vie sociale, pour s'insérer dans un emploi, eh bien, ça leur facilitera grandement les choses. Et j'aimerais aussi enfin vous citer une émission citoyenne, une nouvelle émission sur C8 qui s'appelle Envie d'agir et que j'ai la joie d'animer personnellement. Et je reçois chaque semaine, en fait, une personne engagée et qui agit pour que le monde tourne dans le bon sens, comme j'aime à le dire. Et là, j'essaye aussi autant que possible de laisser la parole à des personnes en situation de handicap ou vivant dans le handicap ou avec un handicap, comme une maman connue d'un enfant atteint d'autisme, comme le patron d'une entreprise. Oui, je ne sais pas si c'était une question ou un problème de micro, je vais continuer et je crois que les questions, c'est plutôt vers la fin. Comme j'ai aussi reçu le patron d'une entreprise adaptée, donc avec 3/4 des salariés donc, sont handicapés.
Excuse me, Jale, we cannot hear the English interpretation.
Oh, okay.
From French.
So, would you like me to
I will sort it out
to
with the
English?
interpreters. You can continue. I will sort it out.
Okay, thank you. Donc, je continue en français. Néanmoins, écoutez, je tiendrai à votre disposition le texte si jamais l'introduction n'a pas pu être écoutée par tout le monde. Donc, je vous donnais juste l'exemple d'Envie d'agir que j'ai l'honneur de présenter sur C8 et où je reçois des personnes qui vivent avec un handicap parce que j'ai à cœur de laisser cette visibilité-là, qu'un patron d'entreprise adaptée, boîte de production qui embauche à 3/4 des personnes handicapées puisse venir dire en quoi c'est important, qu'une jeune femme qui s'est engagée pour aider des enfants, des adolescents atteints de cancer dans les hôpitaux puisse venir en parler et partager ça avec les téléspectateurs, qu'un jeune homme atteint de mucoviscidose qui a été greffé de 2 poumons et qui vit sa vie avec plein de courage puisse aussi venir témoigner, parce que c'est aussi ça, le handicap, c'est aussi montrer au monde entier que tout est possible et qu'il ne faut pas que ça empêche quoi que ce soit. Nous avons, cette année chez Vivendi, redéfini notre politique RSE, donc CSR, comme responsabilité sociétale de l'entreprise. Elle comporte 3 piliers, et là c'est en anglais, donc ça va être bien pour la traduction. C'est Creation for the Planet, Creation for Society, et enfin Creation with All, qui est le pilier que j'ai le plaisir d'animer pour le groupe à travers le monde. Et dans le webinaire de présentation de cette nouvelle stratégie que nous avions faite il y a quelques mois, en best practice, nous avons montré dans Creation with All justement l'organisation de la Semaine européenne de l'emploi des personnes handicapées que nous avons menée toutes les entités de Vivendi ensemble en 2020. Donc pile l'année dernière, c'était la première fois que nous menions cette semaine tous ensemble. J'ai la chance d'animer dans le groupe de Vivendi un groupe de travail avec toutes les entités, donc avec tous les référents handicap. Et vraiment, je trouve que la question du handicap est l'une de celles qui rassemble le plus, qui gomme les appartenances, les différences, les frontières. C'est pour cela que cette dimension européenne est primordiale. C'est vraiment notre intérêt, à toutes et à tous qui travaillons pour que la question du handicap progresse dans nos sociétés, d'avancer ensemble à travers l'Europe. C'est aussi ça la force de l'Europe. Donc, avant de vous souhaiter une très bonne conférence où on va voir un petit peu les best practices dans différentes entreprises en Europe qui vont aussi nous servir de leçon à chacune et à chacun, je voudrais absolument remercier très chaleureusement les organisateurs de cette conférence. Donc, je remercie Use, EASPD, EPR, NC, Workability International and European Disability Forum. Et donc, sans plus tarder, je laisse la parole à nouveau à Laura et je vous souhaite à nouveau une très, très bonne première conférence européenne. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Jaleh, for your words. Very important issues you already raised there. And it's great to hear that you're not just implementing diversity and inclusion in your internal policies, but you're taking the responsibility to implement it in the content that you're creating as well. And raising the point that societal mentality has an impact on employment and the importance of communications as well. And also the point you raised about showing people's capacities and that anything is possible. And that's a very positive message. So thank you very much for your opening words. And now I would like to move on to Steve Mills from DPD Group, who will present their good practice.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, let me, before I show you only 2 slides I have, you'll be pleased to know. First of all, thank you for including me today and allowing me to share DPD UK's story about inclusive employment. I was going to mention also very briefly that I'm very happy to be included in a European event now, given the situation with Brexit, but I won't further dwell on that, of course, and make any more terrible political jokes. So let me just give you a rhetorical question to start off with, which is something like this. Why wouldn't you want to employ hardworking, reliable and happy and talented people with great skills who might just do a good job or even better job than your current employees? And that's how I view the people that we have included at DPD, part of our inclusive program to employment with disabilities. They are actually wonderful assets to our company who are making a real difference. So let me just share these couple of slides and tell you my story, or DPD's story. Can you see my screen? It's good?
It's good.
Thank you. You can see on this slide here, you can read the words as I just talk a little bit, and I'll tell you the story very briefly in a moment. But on that slide, there's two images, one of me, and I'm not the most important one. Sophie's actually on this call as well today. But you need a sponsor at board level, and that's my job here at DPD, because once you have somebody senior in an organisation sponsoring inclusion, it tends to make things happen a little bit easier and a little bit easier. Second to that, we created a mission statement about what we wanted to achieve. You can read that on the right-hand side. But simply through internships, work experience, all the way through to employment is our mission in DPD UK. And the most important person on the slide is a young lady called Sophie Robbins, who I work with very, very closely. And she's our job coach. And that has been fundamental to our success in terms of including people with disabilities in DPD UK, because she acts as a pivotal link between the people who are doing the job, the person who's got the disability, and the college and the parents and the family as well. So that is quite a crucial role. Depending on how many people you may employ, you wouldn't need it at the start, because many colleges in the UK have that facility. In fact, that's where Sophie was working originally. But don't underestimate the value of having your own job coach to facilitate and help the success of including people on supported internship. So the DPD UK story goes something like this. At the age of 25, people in the UK who have a disability and they're at college are pretty much thrown on the scrap heap. It's a very sad story, and you might have a few tears at the beginning of this story, but it ends very, very happily. It starts with my son, Edward, and I went to his review at 25, and simply the college said to me, despite working with some lovely people, there is nowhere for him to go. It was as brutal as that. His mum was very upset. I was very upset. I was very disappointed. And I sat back and thought, you know what, this is not right, not just from my own son's perspective, who has moderate learning difficulties and is a wheelchair user, but just how many more people find themselves in this position. So simply I came back to the board at DPD UK and said, there is a problem. And the CEO said to me, what is the problem, Steve? And I said, simply, people with disabilities are being overlooked for working opportunities. Colleges, charities, councils are not connected to businesses, and we need to bridge that gap. And that's exactly what we did. So off I went to the college and spoke to the principal there, very nice lady. I said, have you got some students who you'd like to come and work at DPD? And she said, we have, Steve. I said, how many have you got? She said, we've got 100. I said, well, 100 might be a bit tough. So we started with 10. And we asked 10 people to come and join us at DPD and talk about what they enjoy, what they're good at, and what their aspirations are. And from that, we launched DPD Inspire. We created a very simple program of work where we made sure they were safe and secure on site. We understood their difficulties. Sophie provided a pivotal role between the various departments that volunteered willingly to take somebody on with a disability to come and work at DPD. It was a fabulous story. And over 6 weeks in the summer, we integrated them into the workplace. And in the September, when they returned back to college, they started with us on their internship. Now, we couldn't pay them, but one of the things that we did at DPD, which is a nice little tip, we paid for their travel and we paid for their lunch at work as well. And when it came to Christmas, when they achieved their first milestone, we rewarded them with £500 or something like 650 euros as a gift that they could go and spend at Christmas on themselves or their family. And of course, over the course of the year, the preceding 2 years, or the next 2 years rather, we slowly developed the people and their skills, and they've all now successfully obtained full-time employment at DPD, working in a variety of different roles, from the admin roles into working in the warehouse and the logistics team. We didn't create any barriers, and there really are no barriers. You need to make simple adjustments to help people on their journey. They're no different to you and I at the end of the day, a person with a disability. You just need to understand a little bit about what small adjustment you might need to make to help them in the workplace. But let me assure you They are very, very committed people. They will never let you down. They've got a smile on their face every day. They are happy to be given the opportunity to come to work, and they do a fabulous job. And on more than one occasion, I've been told that other people in different sections have been asked, why is, let's say, for example, let's use a name, a made-up name of Dave. Why is Dave able to produce more or work harder than you who have been here for so many years? They actually are making a massive contribution, and don't underestimate the impact it has on them and their families and their friends as well. We're actually, you know, it makes me happy to see people smile every day that have literally never been given an opportunity to work. So they're, you know, they've improved as people as well throughout that journey. But just to take you through a couple of other things, as I said, you know, what we're trying to do at DPD is employment is the goal. DPD Inspire next year, because we've lost 1.5 years, as everybody has with COVID, we will take on another 10 people at least. We will expand to include our depots around the countries, but we're also now talking to different councils and different charities and trying to help out. For example, 2 things we've done quite recently, we ran a Christmas card competition with all the special educational needs schools in the whole area around the West Midlands where we're located to do a Christmas card competition. So the DPD Christmas card this year has been designed by one of those schools. And for the more able-bodied schools, we're running a sustainability competition, which is really pivotal to our strategy in DPD UK about making parcel delivery more sustainable. So we've asked them to come up with ideas that we can reward and recognise them with. Now that's not an employment, but that's DPD playing a bigger part in our community and working with groups of people, as I said right at the start, that have been previously ignored by employers. So really, if you think about back to that rhetorical question, why wouldn't you employ people with a disability? It's crazy that you don't consider them. The only reason why you don't consider them is because you probably don't know about them. But as a skill and talented people, they are as good as anybody that you can take on who doesn't have a disability. So hopefully I've given you a sense of you know, what we're doing. We've created a guide, by the way, as well. So we have a guide now that allows other employers, which we're happy to share with you in the near future. It's almost ready to be distributed. A guide on what DPD of UK to help you on your journey as an employer to take on people as part of your workforce and reward and recognise, you know, people who've got hard enough life as it is anyway, and giving them real purpose every day, just like you and I have. So listen, many thanks for listening. I'll end the presentation now. I'm not sure if we're having questions now or whether that ends later, but hopefully you enjoyed that story.
Thanks very much, Steve. That was very clear and inspiring. And again, also showing the role that a company can play in the community and the impact that employment can have on an individual's life. And also useful that you highlighted the importance of a job coach or an individual that can bridge the gap between the employee and a company, but also the importance of bridging a gap between education and training and the labour market as well. And yes, we will make sure that you get the guide mentions. It's not quite finished, as I understood, but we will make sure that we send the guide mentioned. I'm sure that's very, very useful for participants once that's been published. And we will take a few questions now, and we have 2 right now for you. One, how did you fund the reasonable adjustments for interns? You mentioned that in some cases you only need to make small adjustments, but perhaps there were some that needed an investment, and how did you gather that investment?
I can't think of any that needed an investment, in all honesty, which is easy for me to answer in that sense. But you know, most of them about flexible working hours is a good one, for example. So we've got one young lad who works in our warehouse operation in the logistics, and he's got a physical disability, so he just can't work 8 hours a day. So we've accommodated him, and he works 4 hours a day. I've got one guy who works in IT that suffers with anxiety quite badly. So the adjustment we made there is we've got a little system where if he's having a particular moment with his anxiety, he presses the button on the desk and it alerts people to come and support him, to help him. And it might just mean that he needs to step out of the office for a short while, either with somebody who knows him well now, or just to be on his own for a short while. So, those are two examples where, mostly you might have to put lifts in for physically disabled people in wheelchair users. We haven't had to do anything like that at DPD.
Thanks for the response. And in general, is there a specific length of the work experience, or does that also depend on the individual?
Well, again, what we try to do, I'm never keen on sort of work experience that lasts a week or 6 weeks, because it's no good for the person and it's no good for the employer, because you have to put a lot of time and effort in. So we created the internship program that lasted a year. And funny enough, we're about to work with another school just outside Birmingham, and they look after students from 11 to 19 with special educational needs. And they want a work experience program, not an internship. Now, this is just purely work experience. But I've said to them, let's make it last for the year. So they've agreed that. So the 4 individuals that they talked about will come on and work with us for at least 1 day a week as part of work experience. And it's a much more fulfilling and richer experience. And it's better for the employer and better for the person who's coming on the work experience as well.
Thanks. Maybe just time for one more question, and then perhaps if you're up for writing in the chat, but I'll just take one again more in relation to the company. So how did you identify the roles available, or was it based on the interests of the employees in that particular department or division of DPD?
Yeah, and again, being a board here, this is where I'm sort of a little bit creative, shall I say, because we started off with no definite jobs. There was no job vacancies for any of the positions that they've now attained, whether they're on a full-time or part-time basis. So simply, I didn't worry about that as an employer, because we've always got vacancies. We're big enough to absorb and introduce some roles, but equally, some natural vacancies come along. When you're a large employer like DPD UK, you're always going to get vacancies and opportunities. We also, particularly in the operational area, employ a lot of agency people, which are A, expensive, but B, they also don't care in the same way as employing your own people. It's just a job to them. Well, it's not the same for anybody that's got a disability in that sense. They care about their work every day. So really, we sort of created the vacancies, I suppose, and therefore I didn't have to worry about that. And exactly what we'll do next year as well. So we're going to take 10 more people on next year, and hopefully they'll be deployed to other areas of the business that haven't had the opportunity to have their lives enriched by somebody with a disability. So hopefully that answers that question as well. Don't worry about it is what I would say.
Thanks, Steve. So we do have a couple of other questions in the chat, but I think for time purposes, we're going to move on now. So yeah, feel free if you want to answer in written form. And as Hugh mentioned in the chat box, we would ask you to post your questions in the question and answer, the Q&A element of Zoom. And then if you want to just make a comment, you can post that in the chat, just so we can see the questions clearly there for our speakers. So thanks again, Steve. And now I'd like to move on to GXO, and Kathy Balding will share their experience.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'll just talk a little bit, if that's okay, just to introduce our business, because people might not know who our organisation is. We're called GXO Logistics, and we're the largest pure play contract logistics provider in the world. We're across 27 different countries, and we've got nearly 100,000 team members. In the UK, we're across 242 locations, and we've got just over 30,000 colleagues now. You might know us previously as XPO Logistics, and we spun off from the organisation in August. So, and we took all our employees who work in the warehouse side and the logistics side of the business. So we spun off from the transport side of the organisation. We work across a variety of different sectors, across 6 different business units, food, retail, e-commerce, technology and drinks. I work in one of the business units. I'm a senior leader in HR, and I head up the retail business unit. So a little side job of mine, and it's not a little side job at all, is heading up the diversity and inclusion team and the proposition strategy that we have here at GXO. And one of the things, well, the thing that I'm going to talk to you about today predominantly is with our work that we do with an organisation called DS WorkFit. So we do lots of things across the D&I proposition, but to really focus for the purpose of this meeting, I shall talk to you about our work that we do with DS WorkFit. And they're an organisation, a charitable organisation, if people haven't heard of them, that employ people with Down syndrome. And they support us and other organisations place people for paid employment within their businesses. Our relationship started with DS WorkFit around in 2017. We had our first candidate called Samuel in that time. I joined the business in 2019, and we had, I'm sure lots of you had these leadership town halls where all leadership teams get together, discuss business stuff, and various different topics that people want to talk about. So we had, in my opinion, and I've seen a few, the best keynote speaker that I have ever met. And his name was Jack, and he was one of our DS WorkFit candidates. He was absolutely amazing. He was going around the room high-fiving everybody, and you could just feel the love and the warmth of Jack, who's a real character and works at our site in Barnsley, actually, in England. And he did bring tears of joy and laughter to the whole room. So by this time we were hooked. We were hooked on the programme with our work with DS WorkFit. Gavin, who's our managing director, he was his aim, let's get a DS WorkFit candidate across all of our sites. Quite ambitious, and we're not there yet by any means, but we really started our journey back last year. We had a little bit of a blip, as many organisations did, with COVID, as far as supporting these individuals were concerned. But we've got 21 candidates back in our business now, and that seems to grow every single week, to be honest. The challenge one of the things that we had with during COVID was actually our candidates were very vulnerable, but wanting still to come into the workplace, and I guess really their understanding of the fact that sometimes that wasn't possible. But I'm really pleased to say that they are back now, and our proposition has grown. One of the things that with the candidates is that, and their colleagues, they are paid exactly the same as what everybody else is paid. I guess to Steve's point earlier, they are the most loving, kind, hard-working people that I have genuinely ever met. And our aim is to make sure that we develop them to their full potential and help them to be the best that they can be.
Sorry, just one moment. Could I ask you to slow slightly? Apparently the interpreters are struggling a little.
Sorry, it's my broad...
it could be the accent as well.
Yorkshire accent. I do apologise. I will do my best. So I got asked the question of why do you do it? And again, I was smiling when Steve was talking earlier, and my response was, well, why wouldn't you do it? As I said, our candidates are very loyal, they're very dedicated, they're hardworking people, as dedicated as even more dedicated than some of our colleagues that we already have in the organisation. They just want to come and do a very good job. The rest of that is down to them. We don't create jobs for these individuals. We work with their parents and their carers and DS WorkFit to understand the needs of those individuals and how they can fit within our organisation. And one of the things that we do is make sure that we train line managers. We have become disability confident, and we also run courses for line managers and individuals to understand what it means to employ people with disabilities. One of the, I think, fears of colleagues, of line managers, is saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, acting in the wrong way. So we help to educate individuals within that arena to make sure that we can support them and we can give the best to individuals that have a disability. And we do it because it makes absolute fantastic business sense. We're working in an environment, as many organisations are, where we are struggling to recruit, but we have going into areas of people with disability is opening up a new pool of candidates for us. And by sometimes making some tweaks in terms of flexible working agreements and not being as rigid as probably what we have been in the past, opens up a lot more opportunities for individuals. I think the only thing that we've really done differently for our colleagues in this environment working with DS WorkFit is to make some of our learning much more accessible in terms of videos, in terms of guides, and that's for our colleagues as much as it is for those individuals. When we came back after COVID, or when we were very operational during COVID, but when some of our candidates came back after COVID, we pulled a video together for them to understand and walk around the site so that they could see the site and see what changes had been made, where they'd got to wash their hands more, or whether they got to wear protective equipment. So when they came back into the workplace, they understood what that meant for them, and it wasn't scary by any means. And in actual fact, the videos that we've compiled, and the health and safety ones especially, are ones that we've used across many of our sites, and not just for people with disabilities, but we found that everybody is much more susceptible and appreciative of them, I would say. So I guess then just a few good practices would be, yes, get senior people involved with that, but by talking and raising awareness, and I do this at various events and across town halls, going into sites to talk to people about the things that we do. But one of the main things is that we don't push this out. It's a very much pull approach, and the way that we do it encourages people to want to have people with disabilities on their sites because they can really see a benefit to that. But we do provide support for colleagues and for line managers in terms of saying videos and guides to support them, and we're easily accessible to talk to as well. I think the training sessions that we put in place, it's an in-house developed session that is accredited, and that makes things a lot more accessible for people and easier for people to consider this, because you've got to get the general managers buy into this, you've got to get the colleagues buy into it, and we also have buddies on site that we train and work alongside our colleagues as well. My final message would be, if you haven't already and you're in a position to do so, definitely embark on this journey with any form of disability. And the co-op that we work with is fantastic, so you will not regret it. It is extremely rewarding, and if I can help in any way, if anybody wants to reach out, I would be more than happy to give some insight on a personal level. Thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, Kathy, for sharing that. And yeah, some key points that I draw out from that is the emphasis on individual support, both for the employee, but the employee's colleagues as well, and the training you provide, and that being in some cases as important as the support given to the person who might be just starting in the company. And you mentioned the Disability Confident Initiative as well, that Business Disability Forum, I believe in the UK, that's running that and supporting companies to feel confident. And I think, yeah, the colleagues feel confident that they're able to support their other colleagues is important there as well. So we have a question here from representative from the European Commission. So thanks for joining us. And it's interesting because the European Commission is working on developing a package of actions to support employment of people with disability. So really now's the time to be feeding in and showing what can be done, sharing good practices. not just for other employers, but we can also feed this into the work of the European Commission. So in your company, what types of disability do you work with? And yeah, is there some financial support? Do you have support for salaries or also reasonable accommodation? And you also work with job coaches or mentors within the company. And yeah, last one was, yeah, if you have experience of hiring people from sheltered employment in your company.
We do. DS Work Fit is a key one that we work with. Also, we've just started doing some work with MenCap. And we've done some trials in some of our sites, very much placements for 12 weeks, but with very much the idea that at the end of those 12 weeks, those colleagues then, well, they become colleagues, the candidates become colleagues and work in our workplaces. We've not done any work with shelter. We've done work with walking wounded, the armed forces, and prison services is one that is quite popular actually at the moment, and that's in its early stages. But again, working through that one.
And for if you have financial support for the employees.
So as far as the financial support is concerned, it's what we just pay. We make sure that we pay everybody the same as we would pay everybody else. We don't have any, some organisations come to us and they want to pay at a lower rate. We, wherever we possibly can, as long as that's in line with the organisation that we're working with, we pay them the same as we would everybody else. That does impact those sometimes with people's benefits, etc. So we always take that into consideration and we do the right thing for those candidates. Again, we've not had to make too many adjustments, and we've not seen that we've had to put any additional cost or finance that in any different way, because they all do the same jobs as they're not new roles. So they're the same roles as what we have for everybody else. So we've not had to do that.
Thanks. Hopefully that answered the questions there. Just checking if we have any other questions. We have a question. How many people in the organization? So I think that's how many employees do you have? Let's say within the UK, because you're global. You say 94,000 people worldwide, and in the UK you have
just nearly topping 31,000 now, so quite a big business.
Thanks. Okay, great. So thanks again. Thanks for sharing. And we'll now move on to our next speaker, Aline Crépin from Randstad, to talk about the program CLIF. And I believe you will speak in French. So over to you. Thank you.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. En effet, je vais vous parler d'une expérimentation que nous avons faite. Donc, le groupe Randstad, c'est le premier groupe mondial de services en ressources humaines. Et en France, nous faisons travailler 70 000 intérimaires par semaine. C'est un groupe qui est très engagé sur les questions de diversité au travail et de mise à l'emploi et d'aide à la mise à l'emploi des personnes en situation de handicap spécifiquement. Ça fait plus de 20 ans qu'on travaille sur ces sujets-là, mais on avait encore et on a toujours des difficultés à aider nos candidats en situation de handicap à trouver le bon emploi dans la bonne entreprise qui leur correspond. Et en 2018, il y a une loi en France, la loi Avenir professionnel, qui était portée à la fois par le ministère du Travail et le secrétariat d'État en charge des personnes handicapées, qui a permis l'éclosion d'une expérimentation qui s'appelle l'entreprise adaptée de travail temporaire. Cette entreprise adaptée de travail temporaire, qu'est-ce que c'est? Donc, nous avons, avec le groupe Randstad France, créé l'une des premières entreprises adaptées de travail temporaire dans le cadre du joint venture social avec l'entreprise Soon by Fast Road, qui est une entreprise adaptée. Ce qui fait que nous avons mis en commun à la fois l'expertise de travail temporaire, d'accompagnement vers le recrutement de l'entreprise Randstad et l'expertise d'accompagnement des personnes en situation de handicap de Soon by Fast Road, qui a également un certain nombre d'agences sur le territoire national. Donc, c'était là aussi très expérimental puisque c'est un grand groupe. On a 900 agences en France et une entreprise adaptée de taille déjà assez importante sur la France, mais pas du tout sur la même échelle que le groupe Randstad. Donc, c'était déjà assez innovant, je dirais, de mettre autour de la table pour créer une TPE, puisqu'aujourd'hui, nous avons 2 agences. Donc, une qui a été créée en Île-de-France tout début 2020. Alors, le contexte n'a pas été très facile sur l'année 2020 pour créer une entreprise de ce type, mais néanmoins, on a des débuts qui étaient très prometteurs sur l'Île-de-France et nous avons créé, il y a juste un mois, notre 2e agence sur Lyon, donc pour la région Rhône-Alpes-Auvergne. Et donc, cette expérimentation, comment ça marche? Alors, le rôle d'une entreprise adaptée de travail temporaire, c'est à la fois de travailler sur le sourcing, c'est-à-dire de pouvoir faire le lien entre tous les partenaires associatifs qui travaillent autour du handicap et qui aident les personnes handicapées à trouver un travail, mais qui parfois ne travaillent que sur leur propre segment de handicap et qui manquent d'harmonisation parfois ou d'aide pour pouvoir accéder facilement à des intermédiaires de l'emploi comme nous sommes. Donc, c'est d'abord justement le côté partenarial qui est important, le fait de pouvoir travailler avec les associations, de pouvoir travailler, alors par exemple, notamment avec l'ADAPT, dont nous sommes partenaires au niveau de la semaine de l'emploi pour les personnes handicapées, mais aussi avec des petites associations très spécialisées qui nous permettent justement d'avoir accès à des candidats et des candidates qui sont pleins de talent, mais qui ont beaucoup d'angoisse à l'idée de rencontrer des entreprises. Donc, le deuxième rôle de notre entité, donc Cliff par Randstad, c'est l'accompagnement de ces candidats et de ces candidates. C'est-à-dire de les recevoir, de comprendre leur parcours, de comprendre leurs compétences, de ne travailler que là-dessus et de travailler avec eux sur la façon dont ils vont présenter leurs compétences. Parce qu'ils ont, pour certains et certaines, eu un parcours de vie qui les a, vis-à-vis de l'emploi, mis en grande insécurité. Et donc, ils sont parfois très démunis dans le cadre d'un entretien professionnel avec un recruteur et nous devons les aider en fait à se présenter et à présenter leurs compétences en priorité, surtout dans un pays comme la France où le curriculum vitae est extrêmement regardé et le fait d'avoir un trou dans son curriculum vitae peut être un obstacle. Donc, il est important pour nous de les aider à se présenter au mieux et puis de les aider après dans leur prise de poste et dans les premiers pas dans l'entreprise. Et de les aider aussi à augmenter leurs compétences et de les guider s'ils ont besoin d'une formation pour pouvoir accéder à un métier qui leur convient complètement. Et puis, le troisième axe, Et celui-là, il est très important aussi, c'est l'axe de sensibilisation et d'accompagnement des entreprises. Parce que dans le cadre d'une entreprise adaptée de travail temporaire, ce qu'on propose aux entreprises clientes, ce sont un accompagnement en travail temporaire et aussi en recrutement. L'intérêt du travail temporaire, c'est aussi de sécuriser l'entreprise, mais également le candidat ou la candidate dans le début de son emploi. C'est-à-dire qu'on sait qu'il y a des freins importants, on en a entendu tout à l'heure, sur l'intégration des personnes en situation de handicap dans des équipes de travail. Les freins, ils sont rarement au niveau des ressources humaines ou des directions financières des entreprises, mais ils sont vraiment au niveau du collectif de travail, au niveau du manager de proximité et de ses équipes. Parfois par méconnaissance, parfois par peur aussi de l'inconnu et de mal faire ou de mal dire. Mais en tout cas, il y a vraiment, là encore, beaucoup de freins que nous sommes obligés de lever, de combattre. Et le travail temporaire peut être une bonne porte d'entrée pour ces candidats et candidates en recherche d'un emploi durable. Et d'ailleurs, sur les premières, je dirais, nos premiers retours d'expérience montrent qu'on a aujourd'hui un quart de nos intérimaires qui accèdent assez rapidement à un emploi durable et à un contrat permanent. Je dirais que cette sensibilisation et cet accompagnement des entreprises, c'est d'autant plus important que la plupart du temps, nos clients nous disent mais en fait, ce type de qualification, je ne trouve pas. Je ne trouve pas de personne en situation de handicap qui peut entrer dans mon entreprise. Et en fait, ils sont souvent très surpris que nous arrivions à en trouver. Alors, on n'a pas de baguette magique, mais d'une part, nous sommes une entreprise adaptée. Donc, les candidats et candidates en situation de handicap savent qu'ils peuvent venir nous voir, dévoiler leur handicap en toute transparence, sans jugement, et qu'ils savent que chez nous, ils seront accompagnés vers l'emploi durable. Donc ça, c'est déjà un premier élément qui est extrêmement important par rapport à une entreprise classique et aussi par rapport à une entreprise de travail temporaire classique, puisque j'ai vu les deux côtés. Et c'est vrai que moi, ça fait plus de 20 ans maintenant que je travaille sur ces sujets-là, et en reprenant la direction générale de CLIF, j'ai découvert en effet que on avait une facilité beaucoup plus grande à trouver des candidats, même des candidats très qualifiés, qui viennent vers nous et qui sont très intéressés par notre accompagnement. Alors, le message que je voudrais donner aussi aux entreprises, c'est que souvent, elles n'y croient tellement pas qu'elles nous mettent en concurrence en même temps avec une entreprise de travail temporaire classique. Et parfois, on nous dit, même si on a trouvé le candidat avec 2 heures de décalage, on nous dit, ah ben non, le poste est déjà pourvu. Donc, il faut vraiment se dire que quand on rentre dans une démarche telle que celle-là, il faut aussi jouer le jeu et laisser un peu plus de temps, adapter les process de recrutement aussi vers des entreprises adaptées de travail temporaire pour donner les meilleures chances d'intégration aux personnes en situation de handicap. Et pour finir, ce que je voudrais dire, c'est que c'est une expérimentation donc, française. Je crois que ça n'existe pas encore ailleurs en Europe. Mais si j'ai un message pour les autres pays européens et pour la Commission européenne, c'est que c'est vraiment une initiative à suivre et je l'espère à dupliquer dans d'autres pays parce que je suis intimement convaincue que c'est une possibilité de plus pour les personnes en situation de handicap et pour les entreprises qui veulent être les plus inclusives possibles pour favoriser l'emploi durable des personnes en situation de handicap.
Merci beaucoup, Aline. Thank you very much for that also very clear presentation about Cliff. And I have a question from Hugh, but just before that, again, you talked about the importance of supporting the companies, the employers as well, and about the importance of accompanying people in their journey. I thought it was interesting, the very strong emphasis on partnerships that you made. And the other practices also mentioned the partnerships with, for example, nonprofits or specialized organizations. And I think that kind of co-production approach that you talked about, developing the initiative together is very important. And you also raised the issue that people are often afraid to reveal their disability, and that you offer this safe space and that can support them in their journey to get in employment. So you mentioned the challenge of convincing employers that there were people with disabilities with the right qualifications. In France, is it normally quite strict in terms of how employers view candidates? Like they have a strict requirements for qualifications, and you have to have a candidate that exactly fills those, or are they also flexible that you can show they have experience and not necessarily qualifications?
Il y a aussi ce problème-là en France du diplôme spécifique et les acquis de l'expérience sont encore un peu sous-évalués par rapport au diplôme en France. Et c'est aussi un des freins à l'emploi. Et c'est pour ça que je parlais de formation tout à l'heure, puisque ça permet aussi de pouvoir accompagner les candidats et candidates et les faire monter en compétences dans leur emploi.
Thank you. Yes, so there is that challenge, and I'm sure not just in France, but in general, also validating informal learning, non-formal learning, making sure that also recruitment processes are inclusive and don't exclude people who maybe don't quite have the right qualifications. And I mean, that also links a little bit with our next presentation, but I'll just ask if there is anyone who has any additional questions for Aline before I move on. If not, so thank you very much again. And now I move to Philippe Trottin from Microsoft.
Merci Laura. Je vais continuer en français la présentation. Donc, moi, je suis Philippe Trottin. J'ai une double responsabilité chez Microsoft France, puisque je suis à la fois en charge de l'emploi des collaborateurs en situation de handicap et de l'adaptation de leur poste de travail, mais aussi des sujets d'accessibilité numérique. Et donc, il est important pour les entreprises, en définitive, une grosse partie de mon activité consiste à expliquer aux entreprises quels sont les outils qu'elles ont à leur disposition pour permettre à des collaborateurs, notamment en situation de handicap, de mieux travailler dans la mesure où la plupart des métiers aujourd'hui utilisent de plus en plus le numérique, et donc se former aux solutions et être capable, par exemple, au niveau d'un service de ressources humaines, de savoir quelles sont les solutions numériques qui permettent d'aider les collaborateurs à travailler dans de bonnes conditions, c'est important. Donc, c'est une partie de mon activité. Je voulais vous partager aujourd'hui une expérience que l'on a menée chez Microsoft autour d'une école sur l'intelligence artificielle. Donc, on a une vraie pénurie en France de ressources. La plupart des clients sont demandeurs d'avoir davantage de personnes formées sur ces sujets d'intelligence artificielle. Et donc, on a mené, il y a à peu près 2 ans et demi, 3 ans, on a commencé à créer des petites écoles avec un partenaire qui s'appelle Simplon, qui a l'habitude de faire des formations assez courtes. On a créé un cursus qui a permis de former un certain nombre d'élèves à ces sujets d'intelligence artificielle. Et il y a 1 an et demi maintenant, on a démarré une expérimentation sur des personnes atypiques. Donc, on a pris des personnes principalement porteurs d'autisme. On a inclus dans une promotion d'une 40aine d'élèves, avec une 15aine d'élèves donc autistes. On a appelé cette promotion intelligence atypique. et on les a formés pendant 7 mois au sujet de l'intelligence artificielle, pardon, de façon à ce qu'ils soient capables derrière d'aller travailler chez nos clients sur ces sujets-là. Donc, on leur a fait 7 mois de formation qui ont été suivis d'une douzaine de mois en alternance dans les entreprises clientes et chez Microsoft, évidemment, puisqu'on a pris aussi des candidats de cette école chez nous. On s'est assuré, en fait, pendant cette formation, on s'est assuré qu'on allait adresser les problématiques, entre guillemets, qui n'étaient pas relatives à l'apprentissage à proprement parler de l'intelligence artificielle, mais vraiment des sujets plus relatifs à la façon d'être, à la capacité aussi de s'exprimer vis-à-vis d'un recruteur. Et on a vu dans les différentes questions et les différentes interventions aujourd'hui beaucoup d'éléments importants sur la nécessité de former les managers, de les sensibiliser. Donc, pour sensibiliser nos managers, on s'est assuré que chaque élève de cette promotion avait un mentor de l'entreprise, donc un mentor de Microsoft pour l'accompagner, ce qui a été une vraie richesse puisque ça a permis en fait à ces managers d'être très sensibles au handicap et au recrutement de ces personnes en situation de handicap. Alors, pour accompagner aussi la possibilité en fait d'entraîner ces élèves à passer des entretiens de recrutement, on a travaillé avec un partenaire de Microsoft qui s'appelle Actimage. On a travaillé sur une solution de réalité mixte donc, pour permettre à ces étudiants de s'entraîner à passer des entretiens. Donc, je vais vous partager, si vous me le permettez, une petite vidéo rapide pour vous montrer un petit peu l'outil que l'on a implémenté et qui a permis en fait à ces étudiants de commencer à s'entraîner avant de rencontrer leur potentiel futur recruteur. Alors, je vous partage une vidéo, elle est en français, mais elle est sous-titrée en anglais.
Bonjour, je suis Madame Dupont, responsable du service des ressources humaines. Je suis ravie de vous recevoir.
Jomna est une application pour HoloLens 2 qui permet aux jeunes adultes ayant des troubles du spectre autistique de s'entraîner à l'entretien d'embauche. Jomna répond à 2 objectifs. Permettre aux candidats présentant des troubles du spectre autistique de s'entraîner. Sensibiliser les recruteurs au comportement de candidats atypiques. Je commence par lire mes mails et je fais le tour de tous les sujets clôturés la veille.
Très bien, merci. Est-ce que vous pouvez me parler de votre formation?
À l'issue de l'entretien, le candidat peut recevoir un bilan personnalisé par mail. L'application est également disponible sur ordinateur.
Voilà, donc en fait, cette application, ce qui est intéressant, c'est qu'une personne dans le trouble du spectre autistique peut avoir des difficultés à s'entraîner à passer un entretien face à une personne réelle. Il y a la crainte en fait de l'échange avec une autre personne, et donc en fait, on a fait des tests, on a travaillé en fait avec Actimage, et ça fait très longtemps qu'on travaille sur ces sujets d'autisme avec Actimage, et on s'est rendu compte qu'en définitive, ils ont bien compris quand ils sont dans cet environnement, ne pas avoir affaire à un recruteur humain, mais avoir affaire finalement à un recruteur virtuel. Et donc l'intérêt, c'est qu'ils se lâchent davantage, ils sont plus épanouis, ils sont plus en capacité finalement de répondre à ces difficultés qu'un recruteur humain peut amener. Et donc, on fait le pari qu'à travers la possibilité de s'entraîner à passer ces entretiens, on va pouvoir transposer l'aisance d'échange avec le recruteur grâce à ce type d'outil. Donc, en fait, il va pouvoir s'entraîner 1 fois, 2 fois, 3 fois, et lorsqu'il sera prêt et qu'il sera suffisamment armé, là, on le mettra dans une véritable situation réelle. Alors, pour poursuivre en fait sur ce sujet, on a donc travaillé aussi avec Pôle emploi qui en France est l'organisme qui se charge en définitive de recenser les personnes qui sont demandeurs d'emploi et d'essayer de leur trouver voilà, des jobs. Et donc, Pôle emploi va expérimenter dans deux centres l'utilisation en fait, de ces casques de réalité mixte pour des publics autistes. Voilà. Donc, c'est comment la technologie peut effectivement être au service finalement de ces entretiens de recrutement. J'en ai fini de ma présentation, Laura.
Great, merci. merci, and thank you for bringing in the element of technology and how technology can, in this case specifically, support the job search process and the application process of an individual. And we have a question. Perhaps I would maybe rephrase the question a bit and to say, are you involved in using this technology once people are in employment? Like, can you see how it can be used to support an employee once they're in a company and therefore support the company where they're based as well?
En fait, la difficulté aujourd'hui par rapport à l'utilisation de cet outil, c'est qu'en fait, on a lancé l'outil au moment où effectivement le Covid est arrivé, donc on a peu de retours pour le moment de l'utilisation de l'outil dans la vie réelle, puisqu'en définitive, ce n'était pas la bonne période pour vraiment l'utiliser. Donc, on a pu l'utiliser uniquement que sur les candidats en fait, de l'école intelligence artificielle. L'intérêt, c'est que ce type d'outil peut être aussi utilisé par des personnes des ressources humaines pour préqualifier des candidats. Parce que l'inconvénient, c'est que pour ce type de candidat, la plupart des gens ne sont pas formés et la plupart des personnes qui vont recruter ou qui vont faire passer des entretiens à ces candidats ne sont pas suffisamment formés, ne sont pas suffisamment prêts à évaluer en définitive la capacité du collaborateur, enfin du futur potentiel collaborateur à rentrer dans l'entreprise. Voilà. Donc, j'attends en définitive que l'on ait davantage utilisé l'application pour pouvoir en valider voilà, l'intérêt, entre guillemets.
Thank you for that addition. And it was also interesting that you explained the importance also of a mentor in helping people maintain employment as well. And yeah, Hugh raises the issue about algorithms that could sometimes also exclude people with different disabilities in the job search process. Perhaps they're checking through CVs and they're not finding the right words in the CVs, and therefore people are excluded. I don't know if you have anything to comment on that challenge.
C'est vrai que la difficulté des élèves, et on l'a vu quand ils ont été passer leurs entretiens en fait, avec les entreprises, donc les entreprises partenaires qui les ont pris en alternance, on a vu que certains élèves étaient réticents pour afficher leur handicap. Et ça, c'est vrai, c'est toujours vrai. Donc, en fait, on en a une partie qui ne l'avait pas montré, sachant qu'en fait, dans notre promotion, on n'avait pas que des personnes autistes, puisqu'on avait une quarantaine d'élèves et seulement une quinzaine étaient autistes. Donc, quelque part, l'intérêt, c'est qu'ils avaient la possibilité de parler ou non de leur handicap. Donc, on a travaillé beaucoup avec eux et avec les coachs. On a travaillé beaucoup sur justement la capacité pour l'élève de se rendre compte en fait des difficultés ou en tout cas de son mécanisme. On a par exemple des élèves sur les sujets d'intelligence artificielle, dès qu'ils étaient en panique, ils commençaient à rentrer très très précisément dans des aspects très très techniques et ils noyaient globalement le recruteur qui lui finalement ne va pas pouvoir suivre sur ces sujets d'algorithmes et autres. Donc voilà, c'est... On a eu ce type de retour, effectivement.
Thank you. Yes, and it would be interesting to see the development of the tool. And we had a question: if the application is it still in testing phase, and will it be available to any employer? How do you see that in the future?
In fact, there's two parts in the tool. The first part is really the tool that allows the person to test his discussion with a virtual HR manager, but the second part is a sensibilization for HR recruiter on autism, so having a candidate having autism in front of him. And therefore, the first part is totally finished regarding the development. And I think Actimage is delivering that application fully to people that want to use it. So the only things today to know is that there's two versions. There's a version that you can deploy on a PC, and there's a version that you can deploy on a headset, a Microsoft headset. So it's much more expensive, as in fact that technology is currently expensive. But if you want to use it on the PC, it's less immersive for the candidate, but it's not necessarily a problem to use it on a PC. So probably just be in touch with Actimage, who is in charge of deploying that solution. And if you are interested in, feel free to send me a mail, and I will do the contact with them.
Thanks, and perhaps you could send us the information, and we could also include it in a follow-up email to participants. That would be great.
Great.
Thanks. Any other questions for Philippe? Otherwise, we'll move on to the last presentation, and then I will come back to the question that we had again for Randstad that I see in our Q&A section. So I hand over now to Alberto Gugino, if he was able to join us. We will just, can I check with my co-organizers if Alberto joined? Perhaps he was unable to.
Alberto, no.
No. Okay. So unfortunately, it looks like Alberto was finally not able to join us. So then I can go back to a question that we had, which was directed to Randstad. Je vais le lire en français parce que c'est écrit en français. Randstad a une expérience de politique d'emploi dans le PSH dans différents pays européens. Est-ce que vous connaissez l'analyse de Randstad sur les politiques de quotas en comparaison avec l'absence de quotas?
Alors, je pense que la politique de quotas a un effet accélérateur non négligeable, et je pense que sur la France, l'autre chose qui va démultiplier en fait les énergies aussi, c'est le changement de calcul de la contribution en fait en faveur des personnes en situation de handicap. Et donc, je dirais la taxation, pour être simple au niveau européen, est aussi un moyen, je dirais, l'incitation financière, on va le dire comme ça, ou l'obligation financière, est aussi un moyen d'aller probablement plus vite. En tout cas, nous, on le constate chez CLIF, le changement de calcul qui a eu lieu donc l'année dernière et qui commence à avoir un impact sur les entreprises et qui l'aura encore plus l'année prochaine, est un accélérateur d'intérêt de la part des ressources humaines, certes, mais des directions financières aussi qui poussent sur le sujet. Et je pense que ça va obliger les organisations à se repencher sur ces sujets de façon beaucoup plus sérieuse et de les obliger aussi à sensibiliser leurs propres équipes parce qu'il faudra de toute façon lever les freins à la mise en emploi. Et bon, il n'y a pas que les quotas qui sont utiles, hein, mais en tout cas, c'est un accélérateur, je pense, d'intégration.
Thanks for your insights. And yes, the question of quota is a hot topic, a difficult or interesting topic to discuss. And actually something that struck me earlier in the presentation from Kathy, GXO, she was talking about the pull factor. So in the UK, not having quotas, then you don't have this push, but they're working based on the pull factor. So generating interest within the company and a desire to bring in people with disabilities. So it's interesting to see both dimensions there. Let me just check if we have other So yes, Philippe put the name of the program in the chat there. As we have a little bit of time, if you don't mind, I would go back to our panelists and then just ask you for your 2 or 3 main insights to encourage insights in how companies can go about employing people with disabilities. So maybe I'd go back to the top and start with Steve. Put you on the spot there. And Jaleh as well, if you want to come in.
Oh, yes, I would like just to say something. We already have discussed this in other conferences, but still the role model is something really important for me. I mean, today, if people who have a disability and are in the companies, if they don't dare to speak up and say that they have a disability, but still they have a wonderful job, doing a wonderful job, I think it will still be more obstacles. So I think it's not easy because it's a change of mentalities that we ask for. And I've noticed that, speaking about Europe, in some of the countries, it is probably easier because something naturally is more accepted. For example, I have this impression on the UK. I have the impression that in UK, more easily you would talk about an eventual disability, yours or someone else's. But for example, in France, we still have so much to do. And I really dream of the world where everybody will be able of talking about what they are with their singularity, and where nobody is going to judge you for this, and even you will be encouraged. So this is maybe a dream, but it's important to share dreams as well, no?
Thank you, Jaleh. Yes, that's an important point to make about role models and acceptance and diversity in general. Steve, would you like to add anything in terms of your recommendations to companies who'd like to move further into employing people with disabilities? Maybe Steve is not with us anymore, or not right now. Kathy, would you like to add anything, or any of our other panelists? Let me see. Okay, so Kathy's not. Yeah.
I can add something, and maybe I can share just one slide. I'm presenting to customers regarding employment and the target of companies. And in fact, companies have different things they think about: building a modern business, improve and invest in the future, and improve their financial result. They have a company legal obligation, like hiring obligation, like putting their environment in a conformance regarding accessibility. They want to recruit also young talents, and diversity is important regarding that recruitment, because in fact diversity, as everybody knows, is a source of innovation. And then when you recruit talent from the diversity, you improve all your innovation, and then your innovation can bring you to new business, because in fact you are going to meet different kind of requirements regarding accessibility, and also you are going to meet CSR topics, and then in fact company and most company need to do in parallel their digital transformation as well as their cultural transformation, and both are totally linked. And for the moment everybody is talking about digital transformation without really doing a cultural important transformation internally. So I'm pushing a lot for that cultural transformation.
Thank you, Philippe. That's another very interesting dimension and challenge for all organizations. But I'd be interested to know more about that combining of those two topics another time, perhaps. Aline, you would like to come in?
Oui, je pense que l'un des points aussi qu'il faut que les entreprises aient en tête, c'est qu'il faut absolument qu'elles sensibilisent leur management. On a parlé aussi tout à l'heure de l'importance d'avoir un sponsor au plus haut niveau de l'entreprise sur ces sujets-là. Je pense que ça aide beaucoup. Je pense qu'il faut une valeur d'exemple. et surtout que derrière, il y ait une sensibilisation très importante, une formation même sur la déconstruction des stéréotypes de l'ensemble des managers, de façon à ce que derrière, ça puisse aussi décliner dans les équipes. Et la deuxième chose que je voulais dire aussi, c'est qu'il ne faut pas partir du principe qu'on ne trouvera pas les candidats en situation de handicap. Et ça, malheureusement, c'est un peu dans l'inconscient collectif que j'aimerais bien, mais je ne trouve pas. Et je pense que si on cherche, on trouve, et que si on essaye, on y arrive.
Thank you. Yes, people should be open and understand abilities as well, and not to have higher expectations. Otherwise, it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. Jaleh, you commented.
Oui, je voulais dire, on a presque tout dit en fait. J'ai l'impression, je pense que la conclusion est assez complète. Pour rebondir sur ce qui vient d'être dit. Pardon, j'ai oublié le nom c'est par Aline, hein, peut-être. C'est Aline qui a dit ça. Effectivement, il ne manque plus qu'à aller aussi plus jeune, faire ce travail de sensibilisation, plus jeune, faire en sorte que le handicap soit correctement pris en compte pour qu'effectivement les entreprises aient de plus en plus la possibilité de recruter des personnes en situation de handicap de plus en plus diplômées. Parce qu'il ne faut rien s'interdire, il faut vraiment les aider à aller le plus loin possible. Et c'est important. Et puis à apprendre un métier, à pouvoir travailler. Donc, quand on a donné tout, le rôle modèle, le niveau management, la créativité que ça génère, le fait qu'il faut dès le plus jeune âge arriver à intégrer le handicap le mieux possible. Et je pourrais éventuellement conclure en parlant du rôle des médias, puisque je fais partie d'un groupe de médias, comme je l'ai fait en ouverture, et dire à quel point l'image qu'on renvoie dans les contenus qu'on produit partout dans le monde est extrêmement important, et les médias en ont conscience. Quand on verra une personne handicapée, une personne vivant avec un handicap, pour dire, j'aime bien cette formule-là, personne vivant avec un handicap, par exemple dans un rôle de présidente de la République, dans des rôles où on montre aussi que tout est possible, ça aussi c'est l'exemplarité qui nous permettra d'ouvrir des portes. Ça ne veut pas dire que ça va faciliter la vie de tout le monde, il y a des choses difficiles, hein, je me fais pas, il y a des handicaps lourds, compliqués, mais plus on montrera à quel point c'est banal, ça fait partie de la vie tout simplement, plus on aura tous à y gagner, dans la société en général et forcément du coup dans les entreprises. Les entreprises ont un rôle à jouer pour la société extérieure, mais l'inverse est vrai aussi. Donc, et les médias au milieu de tout ça doivent continuer à jouer leur rôle et c'est ce que moi j'essaye aussi vraiment de porter et d'encourager parce que je crois à la force des images, je crois à la force des mots, je crois à la force de ce qu'on regarde, de ce qu'on voit. Donc, voilà.
Merci, Jaleh. Thank you very much again for this inspiring comment. And you'll see that Hugh has been posting some links in the chat. So some of these are links to events that may be of interest to you, and others are resources. So the European Union for Supported Employment, one of the co-organizers, is available to help organizations and companies who would like to employ more people with disability. They have national members who you can reach out to. And so you see the link for the youth member organizations there in the chat. So I encourage you to check that out and see who could partner with you in your journey as an employer. And we also have information about the seminar about professional transitions and apprenticeships. There is also this week the Job Shadow Duo Day across many countries in Europe, which is, I think, a very great tool to support the employment of people with disability, a very short-term work experience, let's say, that also helps to break down stereotypes within society and in companies as well. And so I think, maybe Karen can also post some more information about that, but you can Google that as well. I just want to add briefly some 4 Ps that stood out to me amongst the many key topics that have been raised today. One is perceptions, which Jaleh focused on strongly there, and the importance of tackling perceptions in society first, but also within companies, and supporting people to change their perceptions. Participation, so participation of employees in the process of supporting people with disabilities, and the participation of people with disabilities in their job journey in a co-production approach. The pull factor, I repeat that again, the importance of showing the business case for disability and building on success stories and sharing the experiences that have been really positive in companies. And then also partnerships, the importance of companies partnering with specialist organizations, partnering with education institutes, partnering with different sectors, so to enable that everyone's expertise can be brought in to support the employment of people with a disability. So I would just like to thank again all your panelists for being very concise and clear and for answering the questions. I'd like to thank the interpreters for trying to keep up with our fast speaking. Thank you for that. And to the captioner as well. And as mentioned, we will be able to circulate the recording in the near future, and also the short presentation as well. And I think that's everything from our side. I don't know if any of my colleagues from the ILMA group would like to share anything else. So if not, great, thank you. And we finish very much on time. So thank you for joining us and wish you a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.
Bye-bye.